It's really easy to create a fake online persona nowadays. In fact, how do you even know that I'm the real Royal Young?
That's because I'm the real Royal Young.
This guy's been trying to steal my identity for years. I'm the real Royal Young.
No, I am!
These two bums have been trying to steal my identity for years, but I'm the real Royal Young. You know, it's been a long time.
No, you're not. I am!
I don't know what's been going on. I'm the real Royal Young, and for the past 15...
No, we are!
So I'm Royal and he's young.
I forgot my line.
Cedric Heisman, Duke University.
I'm not even Royal Young. I'm just here because he said he was going to pay me.
No, I didn't. So like I was saying before I became the world's first mass identity fraud victim, it's incredibly easy to create a fake persona online. And one of the biggest perpetrators of this is Elliott, the alpha male car salesman, fraud, and snitch. And there's been a couple videos made about this guy, but most of them just focus on the goofy stuff he says during his sales events, which, don't get me wrong, we will be doing as well because this guy is a max prestige goofy goober. But what a lot of people haven't pointed out is that this dude made his money off of fraud. Like, he's not even a good salesman, but he's selling sales courses. But before we get into that part, we gotta understand the guy himself, so let's look at some of his posts.
Take your shirt off for a minute. Just take it off for a minute. I'm gonna show you guys something. And every day I want you to look at yourself in that mirror and I want you to ask yourself, how fucking disciplined do you look? You tell customers that you're gonna do stuff for them. Why? You don't even look like you're taking care of yourself. How are you gonna take care of me?
And according to this Reddit comment at least, companies will pay him upwards of $20K to show up shirtless at their venue and yell at them, which is beyond freaky. Like, what is going on? Who is paying for this? And here's an example of one of his life-changing talks.
An introvert in here. I'm not good at sales. I'm not very good at sales. Everybody is good at sales. Convincing your wife to stay in love with you is selling. Convincing your kids to look up to you as your hero is selling. Getting a raise is selling.
And on the one hand, I kind of get what he's saying here. It's like, yeah, I guess everything is kind of sales. But at the same time, as you're gonna see, his definition of being a salesman is so weirdly aggressive that, like, I can't even imagine what he'd be like in these scenarios. Look, Sharon, I know it's small, but it has a great personality and 0% APR. That is quite the sentence to yell in a room with thin walls. I should probably go apologize to my roommates. I apologize for yelling about Andy Elliott's hypothetical dick. But seriously, this dude takes the most normal sales interactions and turns them into absolute life or death scenarios.
If somebody kidnapped your family and said they were going to kill them if you didn't sell 40 cars, could you sell 40? Dude, if my family was on the line, I'd sell 40.
Like, every single thing he does is just pure violence. Like, I'd be scared to even wear the color red around this guy, because I feel like he'd just charge at you like a bull. He's just got that aggressive stare to him. And like, even the products that sponsor him are violent. Like, he promotes this brand of mouth tape and nose strips all the time. And I wonder what they could be called. Could it be like, sleep aid, or breathe better? Nah, it's hostage mouth tape. Nothing is ever just a normal, non-violent sales interaction for him.
You want to make a lot of money? You want to get rich? When you go to work, you annihilate everyone. You annihilate everyone. Some of you guys, you don't hunt anymore. You're losers. You think you hunt, you think you grind, you don't. You're asleep. And thank God you didn't have to hunt for food. You'd have died back then. You'd have killed your families. And some of you are killing your families now.
He has to pretend that his entire livelihood and family is at risk just to sell cars. And like, for some reason, everyone finds this so inspiring. Like, who is listening to this and being like, yeah, this is what I want to be like? I mean, this guy is apparently.
Take your shirt off. Aaron, take the whole thing off. Okay? Let's take the whole thing off. Everybody listen up. Hold on. Take action. And that stance this is that everybody stands in the room and say, oh.
Like, on a serious note, who in the world is just like, man, I really wish I was an alpha male car salesman, so I'm gonna go pay this guy to degrade me on stage in front of a bunch of other men. Like, that is insane. This dude paid for this experience. And I find it ironic because this community tends to be very, like, anti-woke and kind of homophobic. And then they go and do this. Like, the tension on that stage is palpable. Just like the tension between you and that like button.
Everybody reach to your neighbor to the left and the right, grab their love handle. Come on, go ahead. You feel some shit? Not fat shaming anybody. Can you see the undisciplined? I can match that shit to your pay stub, guaranteed.
And I also love how he's just like, oh, yeah, if you want to be a good salesman, you gotta be ripped like me, you fat idiot. But he's not fat shaming though. He's not fat shaming. And I just find it mad ironic because for one, I genuinely don't think people really care that much about how their salespeople look. Like, yeah, I get that pretty privilege is kind of a thing, but like when there's money on the line, I feel like people are less likely to let their biases get the better of them. But for two, he's not even a good salesman, but he's just got this ludicrous ego. But speaking of his ego, who in the world wears a shirt with their own name on it? Like, for real, who would ever wear a shirt with their own name on it? That is so egotistical. Who would ever do that? And his fits in general are just absolutely insane, especially when you consider that he's wearing this on stage in front of a bunch of people. Like, this dude's always pulling up shirtless in super tight shorts that leave nothing to the imagination. Like, who would ever do that? Who would ever do... What, you thought it was gonna cut to me wearing that too? Yeah, you wish. Yeah, they really gave me the freaky audience. I did tell this guy though I'd go shirtless at 100k, so Andy Elliott cosplay if we ever get to 100k. Plus hair though. I'm not going all the way. Speaking of freaky though, he makes a lot of posts about his wife. In a very weird way. He'll post a bunch of videos of her barely clothed, and then the captions will be like, oh, I bet you wish you had my wife. Which like, it doesn't sound that bad when I describe it, and I can't even really show it here, but like, the way he words it is just so like, like, you are posting on main, buddy, like, ugh. And even his audience finds these sort of posts weird, which is saying a lot when you look at the type of content that they actually enjoy. In fact, it's absolutely nuts what Andy's audience finds inspiring.
And I remember calling her on the way home, and I'm like, I'm on my way home, and she's like, how many did you sell today? I'm like, 0. And she's like, okay, turn back around. And I'm like, I'm not turning back around. She goes, no, you're gonna come home, you're gonna have a shitty attitude, you're gonna be negative, and you're gonna bring that shit home. I'm not gonna have you bring that shit home. So go back to work, go find a car deal, and then come home. I was pissed. And I'm like, what is your problem? And she's like, go sell a car and then come home. That way at least you'll bring a good attitude to the house, because I can already tell I don't like the attitude you have. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna kill her. Dude, I'm gonna kill her.
Like, dude, this is just strange on so many levels. Like, your life is so tied to your job that you're gonna let it ruin your family's mood if you have one bad day at work. And it's so funny because the comments are just eating this up as if it isn't, like, weird. Love this. So true. You people aren't real. And then by far my favorite comment is by young Joe Rogan asking him to go on a podcast, which, like, young Joe Rogan, are you serious, bro? There's no way a real human being sat down and said, yeah, I want this to be my name for my podcast. Young Joe Rogan. Young Joe Rogan. Okay. And sorry to derail, but this is incredibly important because this dude is like the epitome of Andy Elliott's audience. So I clicked on this dude's channel and just look at this absolute peak content. Young men are turning their backs on women in record numbers. How do you know it's record numbers? How do you know that? And not only are these weird alpha podcasts just inherently cringe, like, wow, Redeemed Zoomer explains why young men aren't growing up. But this dude named himself after someone else. And that someone else is Joe Rogan. Like, who picks the name Young Joe Rogan? And then he asked Andy Elliott to hop on a podcast. Dude, imagine a conversation between these two. That thought is giving me an aneurysm. And I know this is ironic coming from a commentary YouTuber, but at least I'm not a Nick Fuentes fan who's making videos about infantilization, a Gen Z crisis, with a thumbnail like this. I have two sides, TikTok and pink eye. I'm sorry for the sneak diss, Young Joe Rogan. Young Joe Rogan. But the people need to see who Andy Elliott's primary audience is. And his target audience actually seems to be incredibly dedicated because they will just throw money at this guy. People hire him for talks all the time, which again is crazy because his legal record is public information, by the way. But the most insane thing he sells is his inner circle memberships. And the cheapest option is $1,500 down and $4.99 a month just to have access to some courses and then a single monthly meeting. That is crazy. But not as crazy as the next level, which is called The Brotherhood, aka Andy's new best friend, which costs $100,000 with a small recurring fee of $19.97 per month. What is going on? I just pray that nobody's ever paid for this. Like, Andy does not need the ego boost. And either way, I feel like you'd buy that course and he'd just be like, okay, well, my first tip is you should have kept the $100K. But let's look at the amazing benefits this package gives you, because surely it's gotta be great for $100,000, right? You get to spend one-on-one time getting closer to Andy Elliott. And then you get his personal phone number. And I love the self-confidence, so, like, this dude is charging $100K to give out his phone number. I wish I valued myself that high. But at this point, you probably think, alright, well, Andy's a little bit of a goofball, right? He's kind of a scammer, but hey, he's probably got the ego for a reason. Right? Right? Hell no. Let's look at his legal record. So Andy used to work at Big Red Kia, and he was obsessed with getting rich, so he resorted to less than legal means. So what he did here is, in order to sell cars, they would put advertisements up that targeted people with bad credit specifically. And then once they got into the dealership, they would claim that, okay, well, you don't really have any money for a down payment, and you probably can't get approved for a loan. But what you can do is pretend you have the money. And then not only that, they would claim the price of the vehicle they were selling was actually higher than it actually was. So they were basically scamming poor people into taking out excessively large loans that they otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. And then they would take all that for themselves. Here's a quote from Andy outlining this process. And then in the finance office, we would just give them a receipt showing that they gave us $1,500 down, make a copy of it, put it in the deal, the loan will fund. We would tell the customers that if you tell the bank you didn't put the money down, obviously you're not going to have a car because you're going to need to bring it back. But we're helping you out, so we're putting $1,500 down for you in the contract because that's what the banks need. This is wild, bro. And eventually, they got even more crafty. So they set up like a fake pawn shop in order to get fake down payments. So the customers would like sell something to the pawn shop and they would value it way higher than it was and then say that was their down payment. So in one case, a customer supposedly gave the pawn shop a PS3 and they put it down as a $4,700 down payment. Yeah, the very rare and vintage PS3 sold for $4,700. And then in the case of car trade-ins, either they would just say they traded in the car when they didn't, or they would actually trade in the car and then sell it back to the customer for $1 so they could get approved for the loan without actually giving them anything. Like, wow, nobody noticed someone getting sold a 2001 Honda Civic for $1? Like, are you serious? Well, somebody actually did notice, but they got immediately sent threats by one of the people working on the scam. Andy sometimes claims that he wasn't directly involved in this and that he was just a manager, but that's not true. He admits to being directly involved in this, and we have a ton of direct quotes from him because he snitched in court to stay out of jail. So they basically pulled him and all his co-conspirators in. He's all right, I'll snitch. So he didn't go to jail. He just fled the state afterwards, and now he sells courses. And then all of his co-conspirators are still in prison, I believe. And in one of these direct quotes, he talks about how he used to bully people out of the company if they had ethics. Like, if somebody questioned what they were doing there, he would just make their life hell until they left. So yeah, he most definitely had personal involvement in this. So if you didn't follow, he basically extorted people who are poor and needed a car by getting them approved for ridiculously unnecessary and expensive loans by pretending they had the money to pay the down payment for it. So now, there are hundreds of people who have crippling debt because of this guy and his shenanigans, and he is currently out of jail and selling courses on how to sell cars, which I find both worrying and morbidly hilarious. It takes one Google search to find this guy's legal records. This is like the easiest video I've ever made. Why is nobody else doing this? Like, who is paying this guy $20K without just Googling his name? And I really find it funny when, like, rich people say this sort of thing about how they were so obsessed with being rich and making it no matter what. Because they're kind of just telling on themselves. Like, Andy talks all the time about wanting to be some, like, super rich, successful, good-looking guy. So really, to me, it isn't that surprising when it turns out that he did crime to get to that point. And after finding this out, it's so entertaining to me to scroll through this guy's account and just listen to all the things he says about sales and just realize that he completely invented this entire persona.
Don't be a fraud. You don't get to choose to solve other people's problems until you start taking care of yourself. People want to be around people who are real. They're sick of frauds. I'm sick of you telling me what I should do if you're not doing it yourself.
And sorry for the aggressive tone I took during this video, but this stuff genuinely just kind of annoys me. And like, I don't mean to say that all of his advice is bad. Some of his more general mindset stuff is fine. It's just like, it's really rich coming from him. And at the same time, I doubt whether his sales tactics are even good. Because the way he speaks is just like so dishonest, I feel like.
Show me what you got.
My man. Again, Ashton, my name's Andy Elliott. Just put a name with the face now that I'll be dealing with you. My job today is to give you world-class customer service and take care of you and your family and all the highest levels that are important to you. What brought you in today? What are you looking for?
New truck.
New truck. Also, number two, I just took control. I mean, I'm 30 seconds into the deal and I own this guy. Now, listen to me. I know a lot of you say, well, I wouldn't let that happen. Trust me, I do it every single time. When a sniper takes you out, people are like, I would never let that sniper take me out. You would never know there was a sniper there.
Like, he talks all the time about dominating conversations, and I feel like he thinks he's being slick when he talks about this, but for a while, I was really big into TF2 trading, which is probably the lamest fact you'll ever find out about me. And I feel like the people who were the most transparent with their motives and the least salesman-like were actually the most likely to get me to buy something because they didn't seem so overbearing and like they were hiding an ulterior motive. But to be fair, I really don't have much experience in sales, so this is kind of just like my educated guess. But then again, neither does Andy, because all of his sales were based on extortion, so maybe I do know more. But that's all I got for today though. Subscribe or I'll make you listen to the young Joe Rogan, which is a fate worse than death. Alright, later.